Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Get your filthy hands off my husband, you home-wrecking tyrant. The scream shattered the suffocating silence of the Imperial Infirmary, causing the gathered physicians to gasp in collective horror. Valerius Thorn, the Empire's most feared general, known as the Silver Wolf for his lethal grace on the battlefield, stood trembling by the bedside. His hospital gown hung loosely off his broad, scarred shoulders, but his stance was defensive, feral. He wasn't protecting himself. He was shielding Elian, the delicate, pale-robed high priest, pressing the bewildered cleric behind his back. And the man Valerius was pointing a shaking, accusatory finger at? It was Crown Prince Kalen Damara, the Black Dragon, the future emperor, and, ironically, Valerius's actual lawfully wedded husband of 3 years. Kalen stood frozen in the doorway, his hand half outstretched, a bouquet of Valerius's favorite moon lilies crushed in his grip. The prince's eyes, usually sharp enough to cut glass, widened in a rare display of devastating vulnerability. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with the scent of antiseptic and the ozone crackle of impending doom. "Valerius," Kalen whispered, his voice a low rumble that usually commanded legions, now fracturing under the weight of confusion. "What did you call me?" "I called you a home wrecker." Valerius spat, his eyes blazing with a righteous fury that didn't recognize the man he had vowed to die for just a week ago. He turned, wrapping a protective arm around the terrified high priest Elian. "Don't think I don't know your type. You storm in here, draped in black velvet and arrogance, trying to intimidate my beloved Elian. I won't let you separate us. I don't care if you are the crown prince. Find your own lover and leave mine alone." 3 days prior, the ambush at the Grey Gorge had been catastrophic. Valerius had taken a blow meant for Kalen, a poison mace to the temple that had shattered his helmet and nearly his skull. He had been in a coma until this morning. When he woke, the first thing he saw was High Priest Elian, whose healing magic was the only thing keeping Valerius's brain from turning to mush. Elian was glowing with holy light, soft, ethereal, and gentle. Kalen, on the other hand, had stormed in moments later, smelling of dried blood, exhaustion, and the bitter smoke of a burnt-down enemy camp. He looked like death, to a mind rebooted by trauma, stripped of the last 5 years of memories. The calculation was simple. The soft, glowing man was safety. The dark, bloody man was a threat. Valerius had lost the memories of the war. He had lost the memories of the political marriage that started with a knife to Kalen's throat and ended with them tangled in silk sheets, whispering secrets no one else knew. He had reverted to a time when he was just a young knight, and Elian had been his childhood friend, his white moonlight, the symbol of purity he had once idolized from afar. Now, the most dangerous man in the Empire thought his husband was the villain trying to steal his best friend. Kalen dropped the crushed flowers. The petals scattered across the marble floor like drops of white blood. He took a step forward, his jaw tightening. "Valerius, look at me. I am Kalen. I am your highness." "Stop." The imperial physician threw himself between the prince and the general, bowing so low his forehead knocked against the floor. "I beg you. The mind-severing poison, it makes the memory fragile. The neural pathways are inflamed. If you force a cognitive dissonance, if you tell him a truth his mind violently rejects, the shock could cause a hemorrhage. He could die. You must let him remember on his own." Kalen halted. The threat of death was the only thing that could leash him. He looked at Valerius, his Valerius, who was looking back at him with pure, unadulterated loathing. "Fine," Kalen said, the word tasting like ash. "If he thinks I am the villain, I will play the villain." The weeks that followed were a torture designed by the gods themselves. Because Valerius was a high-ranking noble and an injured war hero, he could not be moved from the palace. But because he refused to let that home-wrecking tyrant near him, he insisted on staying in the guest wing, demanding Elian's constant presence. Elian, for his part, was suffering. "Please, General," Elian whispered one afternoon in the garden, trying to disentangle his arm from Valerius's grip. "The prince is not. He is not what you think. He cares for you." Valerius scoffed, picking a grape and offering it to Elian with a boyish grin that made Kalen, watching from the balcony above, Want to burn the world down. He cares for power, Elian. I see the way he looks at you. Like a predator. He wants you because you're pure and good, everything he isn't. But I won't let him have you. I'll protect you. Elian looked up at the balcony, meeting Kalen's gaze. The high priest looked like he wanted to cry. Kalen merely signaled him to play along. It was a power dynamic turned on its head. Kalen, the master of the empire, the man who had brought kingdoms to their knees, was forced to watch his husband court another man right in front of him. But the political sharks were circling. Duke Vayne, a man who had long opposed Kalen's reign, saw an opportunity. The silver wolf was defanged, his memory gone, his loyalty shifted. If Vayne could drive a wedge between the general and the prince permanently, the military would fracture. It came to a head at the winter solstice banquet. The great hall was adorned in silver and sapphire. Kalen sat on the high throne, looking every inch the imperious ruler. He wore black silk embroidered with gold dragons, his face a mask of cold indifference. Beside him, the seat for the imperial consort sat empty. Valerius entered the hall, not in his black and silver general's uniform, but in a soft blue tunic that matched Elian's eyes. He walked with Elian on his arm, defying protocol, defying the marriage vows he didn't remember taking. The court whispered. The scandal was delicious. Valerius marched Elian to the table beneath the dais, pulled out a chair for the priest, and then turned to glare at Kalen. Enjoying the view from up there, Your Highness? Valerius challenged, his voice carrying over the music. It must be lonely without a heart. Kalen gripped his wine goblet, so hard the metal groaned. Careful, General. You are speaking to your future emperor. I am speaking to a man who tries to intimidate the clergy, Valerius shot back. He reached out and tucked a stray lock of hair behind Elian's ear, a gesture so intimate, so tender, that Kalen felt a physical pain in his chest. It was a gesture Valerius used to do for him after a nightmare. Valerius, Kalen said, his voice dropping an octave. Come here. No. I said come here. And I said, Valerius stepped forward, hand resting on the hilt of his sword, that I am not your property. And neither is Elian. If you want to bully someone, try the enemy armies, not your own subjects. Duke Vayne, sitting 3 tables away, hid a smirk behind his goblet. He stood up, feigning concern. General Thorne speaks with passion. Perhaps the prince has been too harsh. It is well known that the crown prince has a possessive streak. Perhaps the general needs a new assignment? Far from the capital? Where he and the high priest can be at peace. It was a trap. Sending Valerius away would leave Kalen vulnerable and Valerius unprotected. Kalen stood up. The room went silent. He walked down the steps of the dais, the sound of his boots echoing like thunder. He stopped inches from Valerius. The height difference was negligible, but Kalen's presence was overwhelming. You think I am a tyrant? Kalen asked softly. I know you are, Valerius insisted, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Why did this man's scent, sandalwood and cold rain, feel so maddeningly familiar? Why did his body want to lean in when his mind screamed to run? Then strike me, Kalen said. He spread his arms wide, exposing his chest. If I am the monster you say I am, strike me down, General. You have your sword. Valerius hesitated. His hand trembled on the hilt. I don't kill unarmed men. I am never unarmed, Kalen murmured, leaning in until his lips brushed Valerius's ear. Because I have you. Valerius shoved him back, flustered, confused. Stay away from me. He grabbed Elian's hand and stormed out of the banquet hall. Kalen watched him go, his face impassive, but his eyes were burning coals. As the doors slammed shut, Kalen signaled to his shadow guard. Watch Duke Vayne, he ordered. He makes his move tonight. Valerius dragged Elian into the royal gardens, pacing furiously beneath the moonlight. Did you see him? Valerius ranted. The arrogance. He thinks he owns the world. He thinks he owns me. Valerius, please. Elian begged, finally pulling his hand away. You have to listen. I am not your lover. I never was. I am a priest. My vows are to the gods. That's just what you say to stay safe from him, Valerius insisted, cupping Elian's face. I remember, Elian. I remember how I felt about you when we were 18. That was a crush. Elian cried out, frustrated. Valerius, you married Kalen because you loved him. You took a poisoned arrow for him last year. You dueled the Northern King for his honor. You You are the only one who can sleep in his bed without a knife under the pillow. Valerius froze. What? The memories you lost, Elian said, his voice trembling. They aren't just years. They are him. You erased him because loving him was the hardest thing you ever did, and when your mind broke, it went back to the last time life was simple. But it wasn't real, Valerius. We were never real. Before Valerius could process the words, a shadow detached itself from the hedges. Then another. And another. Assassins. Dressed in the livery of Duke Vane, though stripped of official crests. A touching reunion. A voice hissed. Pity it ends here. Valerius's instincts, honed by 1,000 battles, engaged before his conscious mind did. He shoved Elian behind a marble statue. Stay down. He drew his sword, the steel singing in the night air. But his head swam. The poison's after-effects made his vision blur. There were 6 of them. Elite killers. Valerius parried the first strike, the clang of metal jarring his teeth. He spun, slashing the leg of the second. But he was slow. Slower than usual. A blade caught his arm, slicing through the blue tunic. Kill the priest first, one assassin commanded. Leave the general for the duke. 2 assassins broke off, lunging for Elian. No, Valerius screamed, lunging to intercept. He wasn't going to make it. Suddenly, a blur of black and gold launched from the balcony above. Kalen landed between Elian and the assassins like a meteor impact. He didn't have a sword. He held a ceremonial dagger he had pulled from his belt. But Kalen Damara didn't need a sword to be terrifying. With a movement too fast to track, Kalen slit the throat of the first attacker and kicked the second one so hard the man's ribcage collapsed with a sickening crunch. You dare, Kalen snarled, his voice guttural, demonic. You dare touch what is mine. He wasn't looking at Elian. He was looking at Valerius. The remaining 4 assassins circled them. Kalen stepped back until his back pressed against Valerius's. Can you fight? Kalen asked, his breathing steady. Valerius stared at the back of the man he hated. The heat radiating from Kalen was familiar. The rhythm of his breathing matched Valerius's own. It was a muscle memory deeper than the mind. We have done this before. I can fight, Valerius said, his voice steadying. Good. The one on the left favors his right leg. The big one is slow. I'll take the left, Valerius said automatically. Go. They moved as one entity. A dance of death in the moonlight. Valerius parried, Kalen struck. Kalen ducked, Valerius thrust. It was perfect synchronization. It was the result of years of fighting side by side, guarding each other's blind spots. As Valerius drove his sword through the chest of the last assassin, a flash of lightning pain seared through his skull. Images flooded back. Kalen, patching Valerius's wounds in a muddy tent, his hands gentle despite the cold. Kalen, kneeling before him with a ring made of twisted steel. Kalen, screaming his name as the mace came down at the gray gorge. Asterisk Valerius throwing himself in front of the blow, thinking, not him. Take me, but not him. Asterisk the memory hit him with the force of a physical blow. Valerius stumbled, dropping his sword. Valerius. Kalen was there instantly, catching him before he hit the ground. The prince's face was smeared with blood, his fine clothes torn, but his eyes were filled with a terrifying panic. Elian. Get the physician. Kalen roared, pulling Valerius into his lap. Stay with me, Val. Don't you dare close your eyes. Valerius blinked, the fog lifting. The soft, white purity of Elian faded into the background, replaced by the stark, brutal, beautiful reality of Kalen. The man who had held him while he cried. The man who had burned cities for him. The man Valerius had loved enough to die for. Valerius reached up, his hand trembling, and touched Kalen's cheek. He smeared blood on the prince's pale skin. You. Valerius rasped. Shoo. I've got you. Kalen whispered, pressing his forehead against Valerius's. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You. Terrible, arrogant. Valerius let out a wet, choked laugh. You homewrecker. Kalen froze. He pulled back slightly, searching Valerius's eyes. He saw clarity there. He saw the recognition. You remember, Kalen breathed. I remember, Valerius whispered, tears leaking from his eyes. I remember that you snore when you've had too much wine. I remember you hate the cold. And I remember I'm the one who wrecked your home first. It was an inside joke. A memory from their first year, when Valerius had accidentally destroyed Kaelin's private study during a spar. Kaelin let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. He buried his face in Valerius's neck, holding him tight enough to bruise. I thought I lost you. I thought you were going to look at me with hate forever. I could never hate you, Valerius murmured, wrapping his arms around his husband. Even when I forgot you. My body knew. My sword knew how to move with you. Elien arrived with the guards and the physician, but he stopped a few feet away. He saw the general holding the prince, the white moonlight, forgotten in the face of a blazing sun. Elien smiled, a sad but relieved expression, and turned to direct the guards to clean up the bodies. Valerius looked over Kaelin's shoulder at the priest. I owe Elien an apology, he muttered. You owe him a fruit basket, Kaelin said, lifting his head. The cold mask was gone. He looked exhausted, human, and deeply in love. And you owe me a very long explanation for why you chose him over me. He's nicer than you, Valerius teased weakly. He's boring, Kaelin countered, leaning down to kiss Valerius. A kiss that tasted of iron and salt and forever. And he wouldn't burn the world for you. I would. I know, Valerius whispered against his lips. That's why I came back. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing the icy crown prince melt for his general, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. Would you forgive a husband who tried to kill you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then.